Finally we've made it. We've sifted through everything else and finally weeded down to the best 2 games of the year. But I do things a little bit differently. That's right, I'm not just gonna name the number 2 and number 1 games of the year. We're gonna have a showdown. Oh yeah, an old-fashioned mano-a-mano combat. It's gonna be Nathan Drake against Soap McTavish. It's gonna be epic adventure against awesome military combat. Guns against, bigger guns. That's right, the game of the year is about to be announced, but first we'll investigate both Uncharted 2 and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Only one can win. It's DSP's Game of the Year Awards 2009. Top 10 Best Games of the Year. The ground rules to qualify for Game of the Year, well, basically it has to be a complete package. I'm not just going to focus solely on the campaign or the gameplay or the multiplayer of either game. It has to be a complete enough package overall to warrant getting the title of the best game of 2009. And one quick thing I do want to cover before we get into more detail is that I love both of these games. I just felt so good about spending the $60 when I purchased both of these games. After completing them, I felt like I fully got my money's worth. And don't get me wrong, both of these games could definitely be worthy of the title Game of the Year. However, it's just their bad luck that both of them were released in 2009, and so there has to be a winner. So let's get started with the game that was released first, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Nolan North reprises his role as Nathan Drake, the title character of Among Thieves. And if you don't know who Nolan North is, he's the guy who's done every freaking voice ever in any game or animated series. Seriously, this guy's resume is insane. Well, I guess you can't blame anyone because this guy's a pro and it definitely shows. Uncharted 2 actually starts in what's called in medias res, which in literary terms basically means that the story actually begins in the middle, with Nathan Drake hanging off of a train that's just crashed over a ravine. And as the game progresses, you actually find out that this whole thing started when 2 of Nathan's old associates, Harry and Chloe, actually contacted him to begin this treasure hunting mission to find some of Marco Polo's treasure. As the story continues, of course, there's a lot of twists and turns. There's a return of a lot of the characters from the first game, including both Elena and Sully. And basically, it's an awesome treasure hunting adventure. I mean, this game, the campaign is like watching a great Hollywood movie that's interactive. I mean, I honestly felt like I was watching one of the first 3 Indiana Jones movies. That's how good the campaign of Uncharted 2 actually is. So I don't want to give too much of the story away, but basically there's twists, there's turns, there's villains, there's magic, there's all kinds of stuff. Anything that you would expect in a pretty top-notch Hollywood film is in here. But what I really want to talk about is how they've improved the gameplay. A lot of the problems that people complained about from the first Uncharted have been addressed here. Namely, I remember being filled in rooms full of enemies, and out of them, 3 or 4 of them would look identical. I mean, it would be ridiculous. It would be like the clone army of Jose's were coming after you, which was just, it was ridiculous. So that's been addressed by basically kind of putting all of your enemies inside of these uniforms. I guess they're supposed to be PMC troops this time around. And so it makes it feel a lot more legitimate, a lot more realistic, and a lot more polished. Everything's just bigger and better this time around. I mean, there's more weapons, more enemies, more story, more characters, an epic score and soundtrack. I mean, everything just comes together to become an awesome, complete package that really makes you feel like you're on the adventure of a lifetime. And then, on top of all that, Naughty Dog goes ahead, goes the extra mile, and actually adds a pretty competitive, entertaining, and challenging multiplayer mode. With multiple game types. I mean, it's not just team deathmatch. There's capture the flag, there's domination. There's everything here that you would expect from a legitimate online multiplayer experience, and to boot, the servers are pretty damn good. So I think one of the major gripes about the first Uncharted was that a lot of people said, well, the campaign's great, but once I beat it, what am I supposed to do with the game? So Naughty Dog directly addressed this by creating a pretty robust and interesting multiplayer mode. So I really only have two negative things to say about Uncharted 2. And the first is that, just like in the first game, a couple of times during the campaign playthrough, there are a couple points where it gets a little bit too difficult, almost annoyingly difficult. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Any of those rooms or areas where there's literally 20 dudes with those laser sights just kind of fucking whipping them all around. It looks like you're in the middle of a nightclub, for God's sakes. There's so many lasers going off. It's just ridiculous. And the other thing is that the online multiplayer, although it's a welcome addition, and a lot of people did ask for it in the first game, it's really not that good. It's a nice added thing to have some replay value in the game, but really, it's not really needed here. I think the campaign itself is enough to warrant a purchase of this game, and the online could have been definitely better. I mean, obviously, third-person shooter games aren't necessarily as control-friendly as a game that's a first-person shooter, and a lot of people will debate that, but overall, I think the online's just okay. So, for me to actually play this game, and since I didn't get to do an official review of it, I guess I'll just give him my score right now. Uncharted 2 is a 9 in my book. Excellent campaign, improved upon so many things that were problems with the first game, feels like you're actually interacting with a blockbuster Hollywood movie. Awesome job, Naughty Dog.